remains an important issue, especially with regards to automated decision making. Because if we want the output to be not biased, we also need to make sure that our input, the data set itself, is not biased, or the algorithms we use are not biased. So here, I think Yücel Saygın's presentation will touch upon these issues.
Okay. So I'm Yücel Saygın, a professor of computer science at Sabancı University, Istanbul, Turkey. And I work on the intersection of data mining and privacy. Privacy preserving data publishing, how to make sure that the data is anonymized before it's published or sent to third parties. How can we do data mining without actually seeing data? So these are the research areas. I cannot say that this is a solved problem. There are some technologies, but this is an area still in progress. So let me just broaden the discussion to artificial intelligence from data mining. I mean, data mining, machine learning are driving forces or building blocks for AI systems. And that's why, let me give you some definition of AI. In computer science, at least in this context, AI, sometimes called machine intelligence, is intelligence demonstrated by machines in contrast to natural intelligence displayed by humans. And this is taken from Wikipedia. Oh, I'm not, sorry. Oh, yeah. So I was able to get this from Wikipedia because I was in Brussels, actually, on Tuesday. So I could reach it. And the discussion, the conference in Brussels was exactly in this theme, the ethical implications of AI. So I believe this panel is also very, timely. And I would like to thank again the organizers for, bringing the discussion to Istanbul, Turkey with such experts. So John gave a great historical perspective on AI. And he mentioned Alan Turing. I mean, within the computer science community, Alan Turing is considered as the father of theory of computation and the father of AI. I don't know if this is right from a historical perspective, but he's also famous for the Turing test. Maybe if you watched the Imitation Game, you know what I'm talking about. But the idea is that there's a curtain, and behind that curtain, there's a computer, and there's a human. And there's an evaluator who doesn't see, what's behind, and asks questions, maybe from keyboards. And either the computer or the human answers. So if the evaluator cannot distinguish the computer from a human being, then we are talking about intelligence here. And he was talking about the implications of this, can machines think? Do they have a mind as we speak? So this test actually has created lots of discussions, philosophic discussions as well. But can I bring this test to, can I bring this test to the legal domain where, I replace the computer by an AI judge, like a robot judge. And I just give the data about the cases and ask for a verdict from the robot judge or the computer judge and the human judge. Can I distinguish them? So I think this is an interesting discussion or interesting question that needs to be discussed, and the implications of that. If I cannot distinguish, then can I build such a system where the judgments are made by computers, by machines? Of course, in an utopic world, maybe. And actually, this idea of AI judges are becoming more popular. I don't know if you have heard of projects on that, but at least in UK, US, many parts of Europe, actually, there are teams of researchers who are building such AI systems based on the data, the existing data, And actually, a team of researchers, as I have, as you cannot, can you see it? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay, now we are in line. Oh, that would be, you are much better than that. So a team of researchers in the UK actually have developed an AI program that can predict the outcome of human rights cases, actually involving torture, degrading treatment, and privacy. And that's from Business Insider. And I have seen many such projects, actually, which are, being deployed. Now, let's see, how machine learning works, just to interpret these types of AI judges driven by machine learning algorithms. Basically, you have some input data, which is labeled by humans, mostly. And using this data as training data, we teach a system, and we build a model using machine learning algorithms. And then using this model, we can do predictions. Okay, that's how the idea works. And if we can just somehow give the legal data with cases and verdicts and appeals and so on, theoretically, it is possible to build some sort of AI system which can do predictions, in theory. But what are the ethical implications of that? Machine learning is not perfect, right? We can build model based on perfect data, prepared training data sets, but eventually the models, the machine learning algorithms may not be able to generalize well the world that they are trying to model. So there may be false positives, so we may say that, okay, this instance is positive, but this is not true. Or we can have false negatives. So what are the implications of that? And who will be responsible for those? Okay. So from an AI judgment perspective, let me think. Let's go back to this experiment of the Turing test with where we have the computer judge versus the human judge. Let's say I have the decision of the computer judge, or the human judge, sorry. I don't have a chance to have an MR scan of the judge to see where the decisions are coming from, what are they based on. I can just read the decision letter and see what these decisions are made. But I cannot say that these decisions are not biased or not fair, as per se. But in case of computer judges, I can do that. In not all cases, but in some cases. I can just probe the machine learning model and ask, okay, you made this decision, but based on what? What criteria? Okay? So in that respect, I may trust a computer judge maybe more than a human judge. That's my personal belief, provided that the decisions are transparent, accountable, and I can probe and learn where these decisions are based on. Okay, more problems with machine learning. I mean, even if we have a good data set, we have problems, but if we have a bad data set, we have more problems, okay? And the training data for machine learning algorithms are mostly generated by humans. They are crowdsourced, okay? So this means that the human bias is propagated towards machine learning models. So this is a big problem. So how do we understand if the training data is biased? So that's a big question. And interestingly, some machine learning techniques are used to understand if there's bias or not, okay? So another issue is, let's say that the data is used for training, the model is built, right? Can we understand if these machine learning algorithms are biased? Are they fair or unbiased? And in some cases, yes. For example, we have some machine learning models based on rules. If this is so, then the decision is that. Okay, these are transparent. But in case of the newly proposed methods like deep learning, they are mostly like a black box, and you can hardly say or tell how they make these decisions. So they are problematic and they are criticized. For example, this is a big embarrassment by Google. You see that Google image labeling tools actually are built to label images based on the previous crowdsourced training data. And there was this image which is very embarrassing for Google, where two African Americans are labeled as gorillas. And there was an appeal, and it took some time for Google to change this label. So one of the reasons why this idea of transparency, fairness is very popular in computer science is this big embarrassments which have implications for the companies. So here's another example how machine learning algorithms are making their decisions. So people have developed a black box machine learning algorithm to classify a picture as a husky dog or a wolf, okay? But there was some picture actually which was classified as husky, as a wolf, but it was husky, okay? Which is, and then the people who developed this algorithm, this model, probed into this algorithm to understand how this decision is made. Time to thank you. And it turns out that the decision is not based on the facial features in this case, but the surrounding algorithms. There was snow in the picture, and this snow indicated that this was a wolf. So you see that the machine learning algorithms may not be that smart all the time, and may make decisions based on wrong grounds. And this was an interesting case. So what are the implications on AI judgment? So if we are able to understand the decisions of an AI judge, if we are able to probe into the decisions, if we have a transparent model, then we are on a good basis as opposed to a human judge. So maybe it's not possible to build an intelligent, autonomous legal agent which can represent humans and can be judges. Maybe this is an utopia, but we can actually use machine learning and AI to make the legal system more effective, faster decisions, be more transparent, and in a way help the legal experts to make better, faster decisions. And we can analyze these decisions. We can build such expert systems by analyzing decisions based on the big data coming from the legal system to assess fairness and the discrimination. And I should use, of course, this big data term, as in all most technical speeches. And I believe that the technology already exists to do that, and it's advancing. And so I have hope for that as an expert, actually. And that's my final word. I hope I'm not too much beyond the time.
Thank you very much. I think one of the most overlooked issues in discussing law ethics and technology in general is the power relations that are embedded in both the production and consumption of technology. So Sabelo here is going to talk about these power relations and power asymmetries at different levels.
Thank you so much. So my name is Salim Zambia, and I'm a researcher at the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard Law School. And I'm also doing a fellowship on technology and human rights at the Carr Center for Human Rights, which is at the Harvard Kennedy School. So what I look at is really the intersection of ethics, technology, and human rights. And so how does artificial intelligence affect our human rights, the rights to expression, the rights to opinion, and whether if we can use the human rights framework as a way to sort of govern AI. And personally, I think we can't. I think the human rights framework is good, but it's not sufficient to address some of the issues which we find with AI systems. Something I'd like to first start with is I wanted to highlight a point that my colleague here made, that really automation is simply a myth. You hire people in developing countries in poor conditions to manually filter the data uploaded and to even filter content sometimes, and these people are traumatized in several ways. And this is a historical pattern which you see of like this idea that automation works or capitalism works. If you look at the relationship between Europe and the African continent, for example, how marginalized populations had to bear the brunt of capitalism. They had to work long hours. They had to do the manual hard labor. So this is all a myth to continue the facade of capitalism. But when we talk about ethics, what exactly are we even talking about? When we say ethics, I would guess that all of us automatically assume it's Western ethics, right? We can name Kant, Hobbes, and all these Western philosophers. But do we ever take time to really wonder what are the other ethical systems that we find in the Eastern world? Could Buddhism lend insights into how we can build technology? Could Confucianism or another system give us insights that are useful to lessen the inequality we see in the world? In my particular take, I use the philosophy of Ubuntu, which is a sub-Saharan African philosophy. It's been made famous by Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, different Nobel Peace Prize winners from South Africa. When we talk about ethics, we have to talk about power relations. We have to talk about power. There is no ethics without power. And different ethical systems allow for different types of power distributions. And different power distributions create inequality. So if you have a power distribution that allows for power to be centralized, like what we have today, it's not surprising that we're seeing the effects of inequality. And so part of my research is to sort of try to determine what is the underlying value system that's being used in the tech world. And can we find an alternative power value system that we can use to sort of better distribute power and to lessen inequality? So if you don't mind, I would like to read a prepared statement, so forgive me for reading. And I'll try to keep it short in the interest of time. The design and application of automated decision-making systems may, through the digital replication of social inequality, exacerbate existing inequality and perpetuate social biases. These negative consequences present significant ethical and human rights challenges. Various ethical frameworks and different corporate principles, like the Google has a principle, Facebook has a principle, Microsoft, and the use of the existing international human rights values framework have been proposed to address these negative consequences of technology. These proposals, however, due to their predominantly Western focus, ironically, they reinforce in structure the core problem of algorithmic decision-making systems, which is that it's the exclusion of marginalized communities. Furthermore, the values that underlie the creation of algorithmic technology and the power structures that determine who receives the capacity and the capital to create technology, they disproportionately favor a privileged class, and they reveal an individualistic ethics that leads to the exclusion of the marginalized other in the design and the application of AI systems. While the negative effects of technology may lead us to think that, well, ethics must be missing in technology, I would argue that ethics is not missing in technology. Rather, an ethics that's based on equity is missing in technology. An ethics of equity, compassion, community is largely missing in the modes of power that shape society. Humanity has achieved many tremendous feats And I believe that if, for example, removing oppression was something of paramount importance, we would have, as a society, we would have already accomplished that goal. And I would like to argue that when a society has the means to end poverty and the means to reduce inequality, but chooses not to do so, can it be morally justifiable? Can it be considered ethical when the power is centralized amongst the privileged and elite? The ethics in society that we see in society is the same ethics that operates in the world of technology. It characterizes the ethics of the elite and the privileged corporations that shape the internet technology used by most of the world. Tech corporations may have good intentions. For example, we hear about Facebook wanting to connect the world and make us more of a society. However, these tech companies, they often rely heavily on what they believe to be the inherent goodness of their technologies. Society, in turn, is often led to believe that technology is neutral, unbiased, and therefore does the right thing. This is especially so when we look into artificial intelligence. We assume that it's smart, it's intelligent, it could give us the right outcomes. And this is a belief in the supposed neutrality of technology. And this view reveals several problems, including that there is an objective universal good. When we assume that there's an objective universal good, we essentially diminish other world point of views. And the people who have the power to create technology, they're able to apply their belief systems universally. Now, what is the result if a privileged group gets to decide what is the normative way for the world to be, right? It's not an inclusive system, and this can be described as a colonial relationship. Descartes once famously said, "I think, therefore I am." Sorry, let me go back a little bit. So the idea that there's this universal good that's objective, that you can discover using rationality and using reason is a foundation of a large part of Western philosophy. And so you can hear, for example, Descartes once said, "I think, therefore I am." Whereas if you compare that to different philosophies, like the one within Ubuntu, it says, "I am because we are." So it's not my ability to be rational or to reason. Yes, that might be important, but there's more that makes us human beings, our relations to each other, how we treat each other, and what we do in the context of community and in the context of society. To realize one's potential is not limited to rights that we fundamentally protect because they allow us to be rational. An individual, although existing within a society, is not self-complete in themselves. An individual needs harmonious relationships with others in order to realize their potential. The realization of one's potential may be better accomplished in creating rights that allow a person to become a communal being. One becomes a communal being through participation in the community, and this is achieved through individuals respecting the interconnectedness within society. It is the position of Ubuntu philosophy that society is interconnected. One's humanity is enriched through enriching the humanity of others. When one acts solely out of self-interest and ignores the well-being of others, it creates disharmony and unnecessary inequality. The insufficient view of a person, a view that largely limits a person to a singular autonomous entity, I would argue is at the core of harmful and discriminatory effects of technology. And such a view allows for the concentration of power and resources within a privileged class. We will never find ethical, and this is something I'd like for us to take home, is that we will never find ethical solutions to the problems worsened by technology until we confront the power imbalances within society. The inequality in society is all interrelated. The problem of ethics and technology has as much to do with global warming and how it disproportionately affects marginalized communities. The discriminatory effects of technology has much to do with how power is distributed within society. The discriminatory effects of technology have also, these narratives often privilege one, I lost my place. The discriminatory effects of technology are connected to the narratives that societies construct to determine who receives power. These narratives often privilege one gender over another, one religion over another, one ethnicity over another, or one worldview over another. The problem of the negative effects of technology is not simply a technical problem, but it is very much an economical, political, environment, and social problem. Therefore, the discussions around human rights and ethics will continue being insufficient until they begin to directly confront the power asymmetries that exist and the value systems that make it possible for these power asymmetries to exist. I believe that the value system that treats individuals as self-sufficient, self-complete only through themselves, and is very problematic. This is a value system that does not encourage or does not oblige individuals to act for the well-being of others. This value system creates excessive competition, greed, and through corporations, values profit over public good. If you look today into Silicon Valley, you have many prominent figures who readily cite the writings of Ayn Rand. This is a writer who has books such as The Virtue of Being Selfish. And the idea is to win fast, is to grow big and grow fast and to succeed. And I think this attitude itself does contribute to the negative effects of technology. We are interconnected in society, especially so in a globalized world which is led by global value chains and by internet technology. However, both global value chains and the majority of the internet traffic are dominated by a few multinational companies. For example, 80% of all global trade occurs within the global value chains. And this is an outcome that is hardly equal, and it allows for a privileged class to drastically shape the human experience. The concentration of power amongst multinational companies, for example, worsens inequality. Local industries are destroyed, and local and smaller companies find it much more difficult to compete effectively against the large corporations. As large corporations leverage their power to become stronger and bigger, it also increases their power to better compete and to have stronger platforms. And so once these companies become larger and more powerful, it increases their ability to harm us in return. And so when we see companies like Facebook and Google becoming stronger through leveraging these power asymmetries, it now allows them to have even greater power to harm us in different ways, whether it's privacy violations, whether it's allowing misinformation to be on their platforms. So a strategy which we can take to try to deal with the discriminatory effects of technology is also to look into the power asymmetries and how to reduce the powers of these platforms and to distribute the power equitably. How much time do I have? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll just wrap up. In this respect, Ubuntu offers much needed answers in the framework for reimagining society and to reimagine internet technology. Within the framework of Ubuntu philosophy, we find the obligation that is necessary for those who hold power to equitably use the power on behalf of others. And if we have tech companies that have so much power, whether it's the internet platforms, and we don't place on them, if we do not place on them a responsibility to act on the well-being of others, it is likely that they will not act on the well-being of others. And we have seen this, we don't have to look far, right? We can look at how Facebook was misused, for example, in Myanmar with the Rohingya genocide. We've seen the same effects being used in Nigeria, where misinformation leads to different conflicts between different villages. And even before the misinformation campaigns in 2016, we've seen how Facebook was used in the election processes in Kenya, in Zambia, in Nigeria as early as 2012. So we have to limit the ability of these platforms to be able to be used for misharm. And I think once we move away from a value system that does not stress social responsibility, or a system that does not stress maximizing public good, we will forever be stuck with these inequalities. Thank you.